Welcome to the Resiliency Room.
It also goes back to the stigma. If you catch the flu, okay, well, the flu is common, right? Viral herpes is also common. There are other things that are also common. Now, doesn't mean you shouldn't, protect yourself from them, but they are common. And then there's the lack of education component. There's the lack of preparation. Um, but if you get the flu, it's like, oh, well, some people believe, oh, you should get the flu shot. Some people, whatever. Oh, wash your hands, blah, blah, blah. But if you catch a common STD, you're right. You're the harlot of the town because you should have known better than to get that. And I don't know if you ever watched the show Girlfriends, but it's I think it was in this scene there was four or five women. Tracy Ellis Ross was one of the main characters. She had a friend over. The friend was going through a divorce. She found out her husband cheated on her. She's going through a divorce. The friend cuts herself. Well, okay, backtrack. She announces to the group that she was diagnosed with HIV. She caught it from her husband. He cheated. She then cuts herself. Four of the five, or three of the four other girls start freaking the hell out, like backing away, all this kind of shit. Tracy picks up the knife. She goes, takes it, she disinfects it, and puts it back in her drawer. And everybody's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "You all really need to be educated on this more because she cut herself in the same room with you. You're not gonna get AIDS and die." Like, and it is, and she was faithful in the relationship. Her husband cheated, gave her HIV. So, and those are really common stories. People also think, oh, needles. You have HIV, you must have contracted it through using drugs, right? That's not all, that's not necessarily true either. It really is it's a stigma and it's a lack of education. And the stigma comes from lack of education in a lot of these things.
People have become so fearful of it that even reading about it probably scares them.
Yeah. Like I don't want to contract an STD, but I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to learn more, right? How can I be safer? What can I do if this does happen? How can I prevent it from happening? But people don't like to read, so that's another issue in itself.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that because I look at the people who have it, right? Or who had it.
Hmm.
And you don't want them to be treated any differently because to your point, they could have got it by no means from their own, right? And it
Right.
doesn't make them a bad person or a good person. Let's say, for example, you have this guy and he got it because he slept with 1,000 people in 1,000 days.
Right.
And he got it that way, right? Okay, so we can analyze and maybe judge him on that behavior, right? And then when he got it, what did he do? Did he learn his lesson? Did he move on? Right? The people who are quote unquote bad are the ones who have it, weaponize it, and then try to give it to other people. Right? Like if you want to say someone is bad for doing that, then that's perfectly fine. And I remember hearing stories in the 90s where like you remember hearing like AIDS needles and and
Yes.
things like that,
Yeah.
where people used to go around and like poke people and like those people, yeah, you want to judge them, right? But when it
Right.
comes to healthy relationships, I hope honesty and communication would lead the forefront, as well
Mhm.
as I hope people you have to protect yourself right when it comes to that. Make sure that you're doing all that you can. And one thing I have yet to understand, Rhea, is that when someone wants to step out and maybe have their cake and eat it too, as they would say, or maybe they want to experience something else. I've always wondered what goes through someone's mind, someone's soul when they have to make a decision. Either I'm going to go be with this other person, option A, or I'm going to continue my current relationship, cheat, duck and hide behind the bushes, hope they don't find me cheating, and continue forward. I would love to speak to people who actually have committed adultery and just ask, what was your state of mind when you're trying to make that decision that you're going to step out on your relationship and try to do everything that you can outside of it?
So I can actually I can actually answer that question honestly, from my own perspective. So, you know, and I'm not afraid to talk about these things because it may make me look bad, but it may help somebody else. And I've been really transparent in my autobiography, so some people might know this anyway, right? Um, for me, when I was married, I got married at 19, my first marriage, and he was in the military. I moved away, 3 hours away from all my family and everything. We got married. We got married. It was a marriage of convenience, if we're just being transparent. He was gone. We had our first kid. He was gone like that whole first year overseas, like not by his control. He was just, like out not being a husband. But, we got married and 6 months into our marriage, if that long, he was deployed. During that deployment, we started having a lot of like trust issues. You know, as I, well, whatever. As I mentioned earlier, something happened in the very beginning of the relationship that already caused kind of a distrust. So we start out a marriage of convenience. There's some distrust. We go through a lot. I have a baby while he's gone. He comes back for a couple weeks and then immediately has to go back to Afghanistan and is gone for another like 6 months. So, I started this marriage away from everyone. I already had two kids. I was on my third child. Like it was a lot, you know, and not to not take accountability. But a couple years later, we left the military and we tried life outside. A lot of changes happened, and I started feeling like I was really kind of a single married woman, if that makes sense. Um, and it just things happened to cause a bigger rift. And just over time, it was just like I mentioned, hey, we either have to work on this or I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. We separated. We separated a couple times. And in those times, I was involved with someone else. And my intention wasn't to cheat. My intention was to move on. But we weren't divorced. We were separated, right? So that relationship wasn't done, So I guess some people consider it cheating. Some people were like, well, I was separated, so it wasn't, but whatever semantics. Um, for me, it was more about I'm expressing myself and I refuse to be heard. My concerns are valid and all I get is kind of, oh, well, it'll get better. And it doesn't through no effort of the other person. And so I think, and that's not always the case, people step out for different reasons. But I think often in marriages and long-term relationships, people just get tired of not feeling heard, not being convinced that things are going to change. And they're just like, okay, I just maybe even unintentionally just start looking for something else that makes me feel heard. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And I always share that I was in a long distance relationship at some point. It does take a lot of trust,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you may speak to the person every day if you can, or text every day if you can. At the time when I was dating her, she wasn't in the military, it's just different parts of the place, right? But like long distance relationships are tough because it does take a lot of trust for them to work because you're not seeing the person every day. You may
Yeah.
speak, you may text, but it's different to have that in-person connection, especially depending on your love language. Like if it's quality time, that is going to be tough if that's the way you want to be loved. One thing that I did learn
Right.
from my anecdotal experience is that when you're not with the person all the time, it's hard to develop that type of connection, versus someone you're with all the time. Like you can have physical, I'm attracted to you, I think you're a nice person,
Yeah.
but it's different than when you see that person walk through the door and you feel that energy
Yeah.
inside you, that rush, right? And I think sometimes those who, and there's certain industries that are prone to more long distance. What I find is military, doctors and nurses, fine for the
Oh,
people I research. Just because you would think that they would date within their industry because they know better, but when they date flight attendants for another, but when they date outside of it, it's tough because you're asking that person to understand your industry
that's so true.
when,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where when you're not even dating the people that would understand industry. So why is that?
That's true.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where I find it to be tough. And that's why there's always that online joke where the top three women that you don't date are flight attendants, army people, nurses.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, those are
Everyone was that
professions.
joke. So
Yeah, those are professions that take a lot of your attention, right? Because they take a lot of skill, they take a lot of time, they take a lot of dedication, and that dedication and time gets taken away from the relationship.
someone shared with me that, and this is something that I 100% agree with, is that healthy men, emotionally available men, they won't commit to a woman that's committed to something else.
Oh.
So,
Hmm.
right, by that means is that if someone is, I'm going to work 14, 16 hours on my job, or I'm always away because of my job, that man, and I'm going to expand this, that person is going to go find someone who's committed to them. So at the end of the day, that's what men and women want, right? We're social creatures. We want to know that you're committed
Yeah.
to us. If we have to compete with you for your job, for your peer group, for a paycheck, it's not worth it because I always found that the way I live my life is my job supplements what I'm wanting to do. But what I'm wanting to do is to build the legacy with my family, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
change my family for my job, but I'll change my job for my family. Some
Right.
people, they'll have a Rhea, they'll have a Terraine and be like, no, you got to fit into my job. No,
Right.
thank you. I'll go
Right.
find me someone else that I can build this with.
Yeah, but it's a good point though too because and it's similar with kids. Like I don't know if I've said this before on here, but I never dated men with kids because, well, I did in the very beginning, and then it stopped me from doing so because, and not because I had to share time, but like I dated someone who wasn't a great father, and so it kind of turned me off. And I know it's hypocritical because I had kids very young, but it turned me off. And also their fathers were not great. So it's like my children are my responsibility, and I know I take care of them, and I don't have to worry about them because they're with me. And I didn't want to date a man again who had kids, and I find out he doesn't take care of them, or whatever the case may be, or he's not a good dad to his own kids, not going to be a good dad to my kids. And if he is, well, that's unfair, you know. And so it is, that kind of dedication. I know with my current husband, he's expressed that, and I mean I have a lot of kids. So I have a lot of people to pay attention to, but he's expressed through our marriage, like the beginning was very difficult because he had to learn how to, outside of dating me, he had to learn how to divide and like accept that my attention was very divided. Um, you know, so
Why do you think people do you think mothers do you think single mothers should date only single fathers?
um no. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't date a man with kids. Now, maybe, I mean, like older and the kids are older, like they have young adult or adult kids, that's different. But being younger and having kids, no. I mean, I think it works for some people, but in my opinion, they have to have a solid relationship with the mother of their children and their children. Um, because if you're mature enough, you can have and accept a relationship with the mother of those children and not be jealous. You should have a good relationship with them. I don't mean you should still like hook up with them, but you guys should communicate consistently. You should have a good relationship because that reflects on your children. I say as I'm no contact with my ex-husband, but
it's go ahead.
but having you should. So I don't think that works for everybody. You have to be secure in yourself to accept that good relationship. And then you also have to, not have to, but you should expect that that single father to have a good relationship if that's possible, right? Because some people are toxic and actually toxic, and I don't mean like the word we throw around toxic, like actually, and you need to separate yourself from them for the safety of yourself and your children. But when it's possible, that relationship should be a good relationship and you should expect it to be. So there's just a lot of factors. Are you secure with yourself? Are you emotionally intelligent? Are they? Is this outside person? You know, do you share the same parenting styles, the same expectations, and all these things with that single father? Because that's important too. Um, you know, so I don't know. To me, it's just easier, just unless you find like that, all those qualities, probably not.
Yeah, it's always an interesting answer when I hear that. You hear one side where one parent's not taking care of the child. You usually hear that about the father.
Yeah,
But when it comes to like women or men saying that would they date someone with kids, the women, to your point, they'll comment, "You have a good relationship with the mother," because they know how to get.
yeah,
And then the men who date single mothers, they'll say the same thing. So it's interesting to hear men and women come together and say this about that crazy, jealous, but don't hear about is, oh, the father's not involved, but you don't hear crazy. And I'm pretty
right,
sure,
right.
right? Right. But the women warn against, you better have a good relationship with the mother of your kid because you guys already have the foresight, right? I can see a woman doing this, see a woman doing that, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I know someone who has a child with someone, they're younger and they don't have really any relationship with the father. Really at the child's best interest. And I know again, that is something that kind of sounds weird to say, right? Well, they don't have contact with the other parent for the child's best interest. That shouldn't be how things are. And it's not how we encourage things to be. But I'll be the first one to tell you, if it's better for you and for that child or those children to not be around that person, then go for it. You know, and one of the things is that this person saw how the father was with the other mothers of his children and still was like, I'm gonna go for it. I mean, they didn't plan to have a kid, but yes, protection is an option. And so, but we do that, right? And then like that's a whole nother topic. Why do we do that? Because, well, like we've discussed before, we like to think we can change people.
sex change is nothing. If you think you're gonna change someone, oh, if I
Right.
just sleep with him or her, be a better person,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like how I think I'm good in that area, but I'm not so great that I can go around. If I give you this, you're gonna become a better woman.
Right. A
Like, who thinks
magic
that?
stick is not, there's no magic stick. Like that's not a thing. It's a song, but it's not a
It's
real
a
thing.
song. No, no. Like, well, if I just give him, my box, he's gonna.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? Like, at one point, ladies, men lie a lot. Okay, I'm gonna go there today. Men lie a lot. So when
Disclaimer.
we say it's, yeah, when we say it's great, when we say it's breathtaking, when we first enter it and we, like just it's, it's
It's part of the theatrics. We want to get you
exactly
there,
right.
you
Just like
know?
how you guys fake it, you guys act. I don't want to say fake. You guys act at certain points, and so do we, right? Like we'll act in the middle and maybe towards the end. In the beginning, we're acting too, right? It's a dance.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
choreography, right? Just not as pretty, because man, some sex faces are just ugly. You just so men really do enjoy it, right? But I just want to share that
Yeah.
just make sure that you're not over inflating the contribution. Some people will think that hey, it's this
Yeah.
and maybe something.
Yeah. I agree. Well, I mean,
Well, with that said,
uh,
all right, Rhea,
say
bye to the both
bye.
of you.
Bye.
Bye.